and welcome to the Nebraska Writers Guild Author Chat. I'm Victorine, and we have Lucy Adkins on the show with us today. Becky Breed is having some technical difficulties, so we're hoping she can hop on and join us at some point during this interview. But if she can't, we'll just kind of include her as we discuss the books that Lucy and Becky have written together. So, Lucy, tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm a native Nebraskan. I grew up in rural on a farm in Nance County, Nebraska. Went to the University of Nebraska. Lived quite a few different places. Lived in Alabama, Kansas, Illinois, and then back in the early '80s, moved back to Nebraska. And it was after I moved. I've always been a writer, but it was after I moved back to Nebraska that I think it was the right time in my life. My son was getting older, and I went back to the love I had for writing, and first started writing poetry, and then fiction, and also nonfiction.
Wonderful. That's great. So tell us about your book. You wrote a book together with Becky Breed, correct?
Absolutely. This is our book, Writing in Community. Say Goodbye to Writer's Block and Transform Your Life. And it was published in 2013 by Write Life Publications, that at that time was out of Omaha and now is headquartered in Virginia. We started the book. You want me to tell you about the
Yes.
origin? Okay.
Yes, definitely.
Becky and I met in a college class, a summer college class. We took a poetry class that we took from Hilda Roz. We are both poets. And at that time, I was starting a new writing group, a generative writing group. And Becky became part of that group. And we worked together for several years. And one night at our group, Becky said, "Lucy, I want to talk to you afterwards." So I says, "Okay." And she had an idea. Actually, she had a dream. And I wish Becky was here to tell you this, because it's really her story. But I do want to say how it happened, that she had a dream that we together were writing this book, telling about the experiences we were having in this generative writing group, and the amazing work, surprising work that we were surprised ourselves that we wrote. We didn't think we were capable of doing. And so anyway, she had this dream, and after the group, she said, "What do you think about writing a book?" And ironically, I had been thinking at that time, I love to write. I've been writing fiction, I've been writing poetry, and I thought, I wonder, I love to read nonfiction, but I thought, what would I ever write about? What do I know enough to write a nonfiction book about? And so it seemed to be destined to be. And we started working together and wrote this book about the generative process and how you can use this process to be a better writer, to write more freely and openly, and to come up with your very, very best work maybe you didn't think you were capable of, but you are. And so that's how it came about.
Oh, fantastic. And this book helps writers with writer's block, is that right?
Yes, it is.
What would you suggest for someone with writer's block?
Well, this is it's kind of an ironic thing, because the best thing you can do to get rid of writer's block is to write. But if you can't write, how can you do it? So it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
But you have to put yourself in a position. First of all, put yourself in a position to write. And we very strongly believe in the generative process and writing together in a group. And I'll just explain, if you don't mind, how that works in a writing group. We like to talk about the 5 fingers of the generative writing group. You need to have the group, you need to have a leader, you need to have a prompt. Then you have the actual writing. Oh, I think I'm getting 6 fingers here. But you have the actual writing. And then there's the other element that is what we call the something that cannot be explained. And that is what happens when it's you and your pen and you're sitting in a room with other people and you're writing. And what happens to make that idea come so that you get it down on paper. And we think that has something to do with your expectations that you are going to write and you want to write and you want to write well. And we think that it has something to do with, there is a little pressure. There is a little pressure that you usually impose upon yourself.
Sure.
But other people are around you. And there is a time constraint because we write for 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time. And so because you have to write something, you can turn off your inner critic and get something down on paper. So that's why we think the something cannot be explained works. And then the fifth finger is the feedback. And in a generative writing group, our feedback is always positive because this is something that has just been written just moments ago. It's an infant piece of writing. It's just a tiny little baby. And it's not the time to say, well, you could improve it with this or this or this. That can come later. But what the writer needs at that time is to hear what is good about it. What gives the listener little tingles. What is shining and sparkling, and what kind of gets them in the gut and that they can identify with. So we like the feedback to be positive, and for the person receiving the feedback to just sit and write down the good things that others are saying about their work, because sometimes we don't believe it. We don't believe our own abilities. We don't believe that what we have just written is really is as good as it is. So that's the process that we use in the generative writing group, and that's one of the topics in the book about how to form a writing group, how to keep it going, and how to use it. Whether you're writing solo or in a group, we really prefer the group, but just some other thoughts too to keep yourself in the writing life.
Wonderful. And what tips and advice would you give to a writer to help take their writing to the next level?
I would say, well, first of all, read, and write. And I would allow yourself to kind of go to the edge of the envelope from time to time and let yourself go. And even if it seems a little bit crazy, just keep going. I would also suggest that you identify who your favorite writers are, which writers really speak to you and you think you have a particular affinity with, and spend some time with them. They'll rub off on you, and you will find yourself writing better.
Good answer.
I had a instructor one time who suggests if you have a writer that you really admire, take a paragraph from that particular writer, and then with your own idea, just try to structure your sentences the way he or she has structured his or hers. If you have 5 words in the first sentence, try to make 5 words. And then maybe the next is structured as a sentence with a semicolon in it. Try that. And it seems a bit artificial, but that can help. Sometimes it's almost like muscle memory. You are working along, you're taking yourself into some different areas, and sometimes that can be a good exercise.
Nice. We have a question from Lee. Lee wants to know, how large is your writing group?
Well, I'll speak about. Our writing group now is our writing group now right now is no longer meeting, but our writing group began as 9 writers, and we had some that came from. I live in Lincoln, and we met in Lincoln. We had writers that came from Omaha, David City, and we met once a month. Then we lost a couple of members due to death. And so that writing group, unfortunately, which I love, although I still get together with some of them, we don't meet regularly now. But I think the best number for a writing group is from 3 or 4 until about 9. I think that after that it might be getting a little bit too big.
Sure, that totally makes sense. So what advice would you give a new writer?
I would say for that new writer I believe in writing groups. So I would suggest for that new writer, and this is difficult in this time of pandemic, to try to find your community, find people that are doing the same thing you are doing. And they can do this virtually. They can do this by taking classes, and oftentimes after classes, you can meet some people who you can email people who are in your class that you think, I might like to have a writing group. I might like to write with you. Another thing you can do, I have a friend who we used to meet, just the two. Sometimes there were 2 of us, and sometimes there were 3 of us meeting. Just on a regular basis, just to write. But what my friend and I do now is we call each other on the phone, and we give each other a writing prompt, an exercise, and then we set down the phone and we write for 20 minutes. We have a timer that we use, and so that could work. It's writers are creative people, and there are some creative ways to find others that want to write and to go about writing.
Yes. I actually do the same thing, only with Zoom. Me and some other writer friends, we get on Zoom and we'll do sprints like that. We'll set a timer.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll write for 20 minutes and then see how many words we got down. So
absolutely.
So you've been collaborating with Becky Breed for quite a long time. Tell us about that process and what advice you would give to someone who wants to collaborate with another author.
Actually, a collaboration can be great. I think both people in the collaboration need to believe very strongly in what their mission, what the goal is, believe in the ideas, be in the same. You don't have absolutely the same ideas. That's not good, because you want the variety of ideas, but have the same general philosophy. I think you need to check your ego at the door. Becky and I learned that we needed to put the project first, and we needed to learn to respect each other's ideas and to listen, and sometimes to compromise a little bit. Sometimes we have disagreements about things like semicolons and the length of sentences and things like that. But in the big scheme of things, we work things out and believe in what we're doing, and make for a good product, a good book, we think.
Wonderful, good advice. So I've heard that Writing in Community has won a couple of awards and gotten recognition. Can you tell us about those?
Well, this came as a big surprise to us. Our publisher, Right Life, entered our book into the IPPY Awards. That stands for the Independent Publishers Book Awards. And we had no idea. And one day we got an email from our publisher, by the way, you've got a silver medal in this IPPY Award.
Wow.
So that was very exciting. Becky went to, and again, I wish Becky was here because she could show you the medal. Becky went to New York to the ceremony in which the award was presented. So we feel pretty pleased about that.
That is wonderful.
Thank you.
And you got another recognition from the Lincoln, Nebraska Mayoral Arts Award.
This was another big surprise.
That was just this spring, wasn't that?
That's right. And actually, okay, we did receive an award. We received the Lincoln Mayor, I cannot say that word very well, the Mayoral Arts Award for Achievement in the Literary Arts.
Oh, wonderful.
And we have given a lot of workshops, and I've taught some OLLI classes, and Becky has taught some other classes. One she taught in the Women's Reformatory. And so we've done help to spread the joy of creative writing, and I think that's why they thought about us for the award. So we were, and the presentation was supposed to have been this spring. It's going to be online virtually on October 20th. So we will receive. Well, actually, we had an impromptu. We do have the award. We received it in the Sunken Gardens. Just met the people from the committee and received the award. But the official ceremony will be in October.
Oh, wonderful! That sounds wonderful. So, where can writers buy Writing in Community if they want to buy it?
Well, if you happen to be in Lincoln, you can buy it directly from Becky or me. It's available at Francie and Finch, at Chapters Bookstore in Seward. We did have some in Omaha at the Bookworm. I'm not sure if they still have some. I probably need to check with them. And of course, it can be purchased on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, wherever you find good books.
Wonderful. I will post the link in the comments.
Oh, thank you.
Add that there so people can get the link there. So I understand a second book will be published in June. Tell us about that one.
This book is called The Fire Inside, a companion for the creative life. And as Becky and I were working with Writing in Community, we did a lot of reading, we did a lot of observing, we did a lot of thinking about all the other types of ways people express themselves. Of course, for us, writing is our go-to, but we wanted to open up the idea of people achieving their creative dreams, not only to writers, but to everyone who is thinking of expressing themselves creatively. I think people put themselves down too much. They think they are not capable. I have heard people say, I don't have a creative bone in my body. We strongly believe that everyone is creative, and that is inside you. It's part of you. And sometimes you just need to connect with that. And when you do, it can open up your life and just make every day more pleasurable and more valuable.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. All right, do you have something you would like to read for us?
Sure. I will read from Writing in Community. And this book has 12 chapters. And I will read a little bit from the third chapter. It's called The Way of Inspiration, because this is something else that we're very interested in. How does inspiration happen? How can we invite it into our lives more often? Let me get my glasses here. It begins with a story, and I'm going to read probably about 4 minutes or something like that. Okay.
Perfect.
In 2004, the ivory-billed woodpecker, once thought to be extinct, was rediscovered by a kayaker in the big woods of Arkansas. How exciting this must have been. Imagine setting out in the morning with a thermos of coffee, paddling along, an ache beginning to set in your muscles, then spotting the rare bird with its long bill and its distinctive black and white wing pattern, and realizing that you have found something invaluable, something that might be the discovery of a lifetime. Writing in a group provides opportunities like this. We kayak along with paper and pen, writing dribs and drabs of this and that, nothing very exciting. And then out of the mists of our minds, there is a flash of inspiration, a sudden moment of clarity, and we write like mad to get it down before it flies away. Discovery happens in the oddest of ways. The kayaker didn't wake up that day expecting to find the ivory-billed woodpecker. He was just gliding along, keeping his eyes open. And when we write, if we glide along faithfully, keeping our minds open and alive and our pens moving on the page, we never know what insight will result. Why do we write? We write for many reasons. Because words and ideas are a delight and it's fun to play around with them. Because we have a story to tell. And because we cannot help but express ourselves. Sometimes we put down sentence after sentence because of the next one we might come across something rare and beautiful, something like an ivory-billed woodpecker. We may discover something new about the world and about ourselves, and we might get a little closer to understanding what this life is all about. Since the beginning of time, we have been trying to get at the truth of our existence. The first prehistoric men and women looked up at the heavens and saw how grand was the universe and how they were a part of it all. But like the stars that caught fire and blazed out of the sky, they knew that someday they would be gone too. We stand at the kitchen sink washing dishes and think of our grandmother, 30 years gone, doing the very same thing. We pull up blackened tomato vines after the first hard freeze. What is this living? Why this dying down? We writers are trying to figure this out too. Not that we're necessarily grand thinkers or philosophers. We're human beings with thoughts and curiosity like other human beings. Only we put those thoughts down on paper. It's not like we get up in the morning and sit down at our desks with the idea that we are going to write to find the answers to all the great questions. We just write. We may think that to write well, we must be like Blake. We must be like Wordsworth or Emerson or Emily Dickinson and write about the great themes of life and death, immortality and transcendence. We most undoubtedly will do that, but not in the way we imagine. We don't go about it consciously, picking up our pens and deciding that today we will write about the mystery of life and then slug away in search of that. That would be a slog, and it will be unsuccessful. Instead, we write about what is in our hearts and our memories, what the world sets down before us and our senses take in. Inspiration is what all writers long for. Clarity coming in a flash of light, sudden insights, words flowing from the tips of our pens in such fast-flowing streams that the muscles in our fingers cannot move quickly enough to put them down. The word inspiration is derived from inspire, meaning to breathe in. We need to breathe in, inspire, take the world in through our senses, through our very pores. And as oxygen taken into our bodies keeps us alive, so does taking in the world through our senses give life to our writing. Wordsworth wrote about daffodils and about the beauty of the city of London on a foggy morning. Blake wrote about tigers and lambs and chimney sweeps. Emily Dickinson wrote about the buzzing of a fly. But in these pieces, we feel the strings of their hearts in response to the joy and tragedy that is life. Man can learn nothing except by going from the known to the unknown, Claude Bernard said. Hence, we are admonished to write what we do, what we know, and so we do. We find that the truth comes at us sideways. We catch little glimpses out of the corners of our eyes, and then it disappears. It comes to us in metaphor. In October, the leaves on the trees are orange and red and glorious, and then they fall to the ground. Perhaps the great mysteries of this world are like stunningly bright lights that we can't look at directly. When the sun is too bright, we are blinded. But when little rays of light come dappling through the leaves of the trees, we can see and comprehend. It's our job as writers to keep our eyes open for the dappling of the light, to keep writing about what we see and hear and feel about the world. And when the light makes its way to us and reveals new insights, then it's our jobs to write it down.
Wonderful. That was really good, Lucy.
Thank you.
While you were reading, Becky joined us, so I'm going to add her to the stream here.
Wonderful. Good.
Hello, Becky.
Hi, Victorine. I apologize so much. I had downloaded Firefox, but evidently it wasn't current enough. So thank you for having me tonight.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Lucy just read from you guys' book. It was fantastic. So do you have anything to add? Were you able to listen to the interview at all?
I did listen to Lucy's beautiful reading, and I love that chapter in particular. I have a little bit to read if you'd like that, Victorine, or we could wait till later depending on what you'd like to do.
Oh, well, let's just have you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then you can read what you'd like.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm a former educator. I've written most of my life, not always seriously, and poetry primarily, but essays as well. And I've been in a writing group with Lucy for many, many years. The last 2 years, we took a little bit of a sabbatical. And I was part of a wonderful writing group that really inspired me.
Wonderful. And what would you like to read for us tonight?
I'd like to read from Writing in Community, and it's a chapter I think that is particularly current and necessary to hear.
Great.
And it's Finding the Power Within. So much turbulence is going on, and many of my friends, my fellow writers say, what can I do? And in our book, we wrote about this, and let's see what the readers and the listeners think. It's called Finding the Power Within. In 1963, a young Black man taking part in a nonviolent protest against segregation in stores, restrooms, and at lunch counters was arrested and thrown into the Birmingham City Jail, behind bars, taunted by guards, and chastised by the white clergy for his leadership role in the protest. He picked up his pen and, using the margins of newspapers and whatever scraps of paper he could find, began to write an impassioned call for justice. This, of course, was Dr. Martin Luther King's writing his now famous letter from Birmingham jail. Page by page, it was smuggled out to become the philosophy for the civil rights movement in the United States, and went on to set the standard for nonviolent protests throughout the world. It is now considered a classic of writing at its most powerful. During World War II, Anne Frank, in hiding with her family to escape the Nazi death machine, endured hunger, crowded quarters, and the constant fear of discovery and death. But she wrote in her diary, documenting her hopes and dreams, her still vibrant life, in spite of it all. For both of these people and countless others, writing helped them keep on in the face of sometimes unbelievable hardship. It sustained them, gave them hope, and worked to give meaning to what they were going through. And ultimately, it connected them to others. We as individual writers, as citizens of the world, may not be imprisoned or in hiding, but we all face aspects of our lives in which we feel powerless. And something we didn't write at the time of the publication of the book, that right now with the pandemic going on for all of us and systemic racism, it seems like writing can be a tool that we can use.
Mm-hmm.
Personal power begins with language, the words we choose to speak and write. Like painters, our writing becomes a canvas upon which we sketch our personal beliefs, what it is we value. Writing says something about who we are, how we stand in the world, and gives us a voice so that we may be heard. In our own small ways, whenever we allow our voices expression, we give a sense of control and discover the power within.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Becky. We're so glad you're able to join us for the tail end of this.
Hi, Lucy. Thank you very much.
We will have a little bit of a break with our show, but next up will be Faith Colburn. She will be on October 22nd. That's a Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central Time, and I will be interviewing her. We hope everybody enjoys the rest of the week and has a wonderful time getting back into your writing and getting lots done. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you for having us.